From fans sending her hate because of her nationality, to facing the wrath of her co-players in the locker rooms, Aryna Sabalenka reveals why she is hated in tennis. It all started for her because of the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, tensions have been rife over the past year or so between the two nations, and a lot of the chaos has also been ingrained in the sport. Of course, experts did predict that the tensions from the dispute might seep into the sport, but no one was able to gauge the intensity of the hate that some of the Russian and Belarusian players would have to face. One star caught in the middle of all this was Aryna Sabalenka. Time and time again, she agreed that the dispute her country was involved in was creating havoc for her on the court. Not just her fans, but her co-players were also involved in sending her hate both on and off the court for her association with Russia. And while many of us assumed that the hate she'd be getting online would be insufferable, in reality that wasn't the case. In fact, the Belarusian star has recently revealed that the hate she gets online on Instagram is nothing compared to what she faces in the locker rooms. Sabalenka recently opened up about the struggle she faced in the locker room, all due to the ongoing political tensions between Ukrainian, Russian, and Belarusian players. She shared how difficult it was for her to cope with the intense animosity and hostility that she faced from some players. She added that it was really tough for her, because she's never faced that much hate in the locker room. The star also said that, sure, there are always some players who don't get along, but this was on a whole other level. The Belarusian player went on to explain how the conflict had affected her personally. She said it was really tough to understand that there are so many people who hate her for no reason. I mean, it's understandable how hard it must be for Sabalenka to deal with such negativity, especially since she hasn't done anything to deserve it. It's sad to see how the ongoing conflict has affected even the world of sports, and how players like Sabalenka are being subjected to such negativity and hate. The worst part of it all, however, is that Aryna felt completely helpless. During the Indian Wells tournament, Aryna revealed that she had experienced some challenging interactions with members of Ukrainian player Lesia Sarenko's team. In an interview, she described how she felt guilty, despite not having done anything wrong. She mentioned how she had some strange conversations with members of their team, and it was really tough. Throughout the conversation, she felt bad, like she had done something wrong, but she said she eventually realized that she had not. Aryna also added that, according to her, the rest of the Russian and Belarusian athletes have done nothing to hurt the Ukrainians, and so the hatred they were getting was completely uncalled for. Sabalenka acknowledged that emotions were running high. However, she decided to focus on herself and ignore the negativity that was being directed toward her. She also said that she couldn't control how others felt, but she could control how she reacted to it.
Oh, well, how good was the serve into the body to start with?
Now that's a mature reaction. For her, it also felt like everyone was just ignoring each other. In fact, the Belarusian star mentioned how some of the Ukrainian players would be super rude to the rest of them. Of course, she's still talking to some of the Ukrainians, but there were some who were really aggressive toward them, and so she's just staying away from that. It's evident that Sabalenka had a difficult time navigating the tensions in the locker room, and yet she's handling the situation with grace and maturity. What makes it worse is that these aren't just isolated events, because there was another chaotic episode for her because of the war. In a recent event, Lesia Sarenko, a Ukrainian tennis player, withdrew from her match against Aryna Sabalenka. This was due to a panic attack that was triggered by a conversation with WTA chief Steve Simon. The conversation was related to the tennis community's response to Russia's invasion, and it appears to have affected Sarenko deeply. Sabalenka felt like, again, she was caught in the middle of it all, even though she had done nothing. She said she had also been dealing with some challenging conversations over the last year, primarily with members of some players' teams. These interactions have been tough for her, but she is optimistic that things will improve. And not just for her, but other stars from Russia are also now speaking up against the hatred.
So deep.
For instance, Victoria Azarenka had a lot to add to this debate. Iga Swiatek, who is currently ranked as the world #1 in tennis, recently called for more support to be given to Ukrainian players, suggesting that tennis leadership was not doing enough to address the situation. However, Victoria Azarenka, a two-time Grand Slam champion from Belarus, has a different view on the matter. Victoria said that there are some players that have different feelings and behaviors, but she doesn't necessarily share the same opinion as Iga. Azarenka explained that she suggests Iga looks at what has already been done before making any comments. Victoria also added that as a player council member, she can provide her with the facts, and they can have a more productive conversation that way. It's clear that there are differing opinions on how best to address the ongoing conflict between players from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. It's important to approach these discussions with sensitivity and an open mindset, so that all parties involved can find a way to move forward and support each other. With all that said and done, Aryna is also hoping for some changes this year. Yep, she wishes the rules would be different for Wimbledon. During a recent interview, the Belarusian tennis player expressed her disappointment over the decision made by British organizers. Basically, the rule last year was to bar Russian and Belarusian players from last year's Wimbledon tournament. While she was saddened by the decision, Sabalenka acknowledged that it was ultimately out of her control. Looking forward to this year's tournament, she expressed hope that the organizers would have a change of heart and allow players from Russia and Belarus to participate. While there is no guarantee that this will happen, Sabalenka remains optimistic and focused on her training in the meantime. And while she trains for the coming slams, she's also focusing on setting the record straight. She has made it clear that the players have no control over what's happening, and so, according to her, they should not be singled out either. During a press conference following her win over Sakkari, Aryna addressed the recent controversy surrounding her nationality and the withdrawal of her opponent, Tsurenko. Sabalenka expressed her offense at Tsurenko's suggestion that her withdrawal was motivated by her nationality. In response, the Belarusian was quick to clarify that none of the Russian or Belarusian athletes should be held personally responsible, especially for the actions of their governments. In fact, Sabalenka revealed that some athletes from those countries were actually helping relief efforts in Ukraine behind the scenes. She also went on to emphasize that nobody can control the emotions of others, but she believes that the WTA is doing its best to manage the situation. She added that despite some players being portrayed as villains, some are actually working to help improve the situation. Hopefully, all the players involved can find a way to come together and support each other, regardless of their nationality or background.
No mistake the second time.
Anyway, that's all I had for you today on Aryna revealing why she is hated in tennis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.